Have you ever looked at your life and thought, I should be further along by now? Maybe there's a goal that you haven't reached yet, a project that's still unfinished, or a plan that hasn't quite come together. Maybe you're looking at someone else's life and thinking, how did they get so far ahead? We've all done it. We measure the promotion, the accomplishment, the milestone, the thing that we can point to and say, that's the proof that I'm making progress. But what if we're measuring the wrong thing? What if progress isn't always about what you've accomplished, but about how you've actually changed? Maybe you pause now instead of reacting. Maybe you speak up where you once stayed quiet. Maybe you don't take every bit of feedback personally anymore. Sometimes you find that you're learning to say no without feeling like you need to write a 3-paragraph explanation. We recover from disappointment a little faster, and all of those things may not come with a certificate. Nobody rings a bell, but they're evidence that we're growing. And sometimes progress is happening quietly.
3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Office Optimism with me, Sharala. This is a space where we create healthier workplaces and healthier leaders through practical strategies rooted in optimism, emotional intelligence, and workplace well-being. I am so glad that you're here. And as we move through this anniversary month, I've been thinking a lot about growth, not just the big or the obvious kind, but also the subtle kind. The kind that's easy to miss because we're already looking towards whatever comes next. So today, I want to ask a simple question. What if you're making more progress than you realize? The progress we don't measure. I think that we are pretty good at measuring outcomes. We know how many projects that we've completed, how many goals that we've met, how many years that we've been in a position. We can point to the promotion, the degree, the certification, and the new responsibility, because those things matter. But some of the most important changes in us are much harder to measure. Think about emotional growth. You might not be able to put a number on becoming more patient or learning to regulate your emotions, or becoming more comfortable with uncertainty. Sometimes finally realizing that you don't have to respond to every single thing that bothers you. It's a change. All of those are changes, and they're all meaningful. Psychologist Albert Bandura, whose research on self-efficacy has had a tremendous influence on psychology, identified something called mastery experiences as one of the strongest ways people develop confidence in their ability to handle challenges. In simple terms, sometimes we become more confident because we've actually experienced ourselves doing something difficult. We've handled the conversation, we've figured out the problem, we've made it through that transition, and we tried again after failing. We thought, okay, I can do hard things. The interesting part is, we don't always notice that confidence is growing. We just move on to the next challenge. And that's where I think that we can miss our own progress. We're so focused on what we haven't mastered that we forget to notice what we already have. And maybe one of the easiest ways to notice that growth isn't by looking at what you've accomplished, but it's by looking at how you respond now. Let's notice how you respond today. Think about something that used to really get under your skin. Maybe it was criticism or conflict, uncertainty, feeling left out, maybe a difficult coworker or a mistake. Possibly a few years ago, one of those things could ruin your entire day. But today, you still notice it, and it still bothers you. We're all human, but you recover differently. You don't replay the conversation for 3 days. You don't immediately assume the worst. You don't send the email that you probably shouldn't send. That is growth. Maybe you take a breath, you sleep on it, you ask a question instead of making an assumption. You recognize this is uncomfortable, but I don't have to react right now. That is progress. and resilience research gives us another helpful lens here. Psychologists often describe resilience not as never experiencing difficulty, but as the ability to adapt and continue functioning through adversity. In other words, resilience doesn't mean that nothing affects you. It means that you develop ways to move through what affects you. And I think that's important because sometimes we expect growth to mean that this doesn't bother me anymore. But maybe growth looks more like it bothered me and I knew what to do with it. That's different and that's powerful. But there's another reason that we miss this kind of progress. We're often so busy chasing the next version of ourselves that we don't stop long enough to appreciate the current one. Don't rush past your own growth. Have you ever reached something that you've worked really hard for and almost immediately you started thinking about what's next? You finish the project, what's next? You get the promotion, what's next? You accomplish the goal, what's next? We always seem to move the finish line, and sometimes we do it so quickly that we never actually experience the moment that we worked so hard to reach. High performers can be especially vulnerable to this. We're trained to improve, to set the next goal, to raise the standard, to keep moving. And there's nothing wrong with growth, but constant striving without reflection can make you feel like you're perpetually behind. So every now and then, I think we need to stop and say, wait, I didn't used to be able to do this. Maybe you didn't speak up or you didn't know how to set boundaries. Sometimes we find ourselves not being able to walk away from an unhealthy situation. Uncertainty can completely overwhelm us at times. And maybe you were much harder on yourself, but now you're different. Not perfect, just different. And that's worth noticing because acknowledging your growth isn't the same thing as becoming complacent. It's simply giving yourself an accurate account of where you've been. And sometimes we need to tell ourselves the truth about our progress just as honestly as we tell our truth about what still needs work. And that brings me to something that I've been learning myself. You can be proud of how far you've come without pretending that you've arrived. Growth doesn't require arrival. We sometimes treat growth like a finish line, as if one day we'll finally become the person who has it all figured out. We won't. Neither will I. And I'm okay with that because maybe the goal isn't to arrive. The goal is to keep becoming, to learn, to adjust, to become a little wiser, a little kinder, a little more grounded, a little more comfortable just being yourself. And that's one of the beautiful things about getting older and experiencing more in life. You begin to realize that some things that you once thought were emergencies were just moments. Some things that you thought would break you become lessons. And some things that you thought you needed, you eventually realized that you could have lived without. Some things that you once struggled with, you now handle almost without thinking. And that's progress, subtle progress, the kind that nobody else may even notice, but you know, and maybe that's enough. And here's your joyful point. At some point this week, I want you to pause and ask yourself, what do I handle differently now than I used to? Not what have I accomplished, not how far do I still have to go, just what do I handle differently now? Maybe you're more patient or more confident. Maybe you ask for help or you protect your peace. Maybe you recover faster or trust yourself more. Whatever comes to mind, let yourself acknowledge it. And if faith is a part of your foundation, remember Philippians 1:6. He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion. You don't have to already arrive to recognize that you're moving. Let that steady you. We've now made it to the Office Optimism focal point. Here's what I hope that you carry with you this week. Don't overlook the progress that you can't measure. We don't have to wait for a major milestone to acknowledge growth. Sometimes growth is hidden in the way that we respond, in the way that we recover, the way that we communicate, or how we treat ourselves. Also, the way we treat other people. So if you've been feeling like you're not far enough along, take another look. You may be measuring the distance ahead while overlooking the distance behind you. As we wrap up today, I want you to remember something. You don't have to be finished to be growing. You don't have to have everything figured out, and you don't have to accomplish something extraordinary every week to prove that you're moving forward. Sometimes you're simply becoming more of who you were meant to be, subtly, gradually. One conversation, one decision, one difficult moment, and one brave choice at a time. And next time that you catch yourself saying, I should be further along, pause and ask, compared to who I was, where am I now? Because maybe you're not behind, you're just becoming. And some of the most important progress that you'll ever make will happen quietly. Thank you for spending a few moments with me today. And as we continue this journey into year 2 of Office Optimism, I hope that you'll give yourself permission to notice the growth that's already happening in your life. Keep growing, keep learning, keep giving yourself grace. And as always, keep shining. Bye-bye.